All right, we have a good amount of people here, so we'll get started. Again, thank you all so much for joining. We're here today for the 2026 NYSCA Artist Fellowship for the craft sculpture discipline. My name's Audrey Tauberger. I'm a senior program officer at NYFA, or the New York Foundation for the Arts, and I'll be presenting today, and we'll also be answering some questions at the end, but I'll be supported by one of my other NYFA colleagues, so I'll pass it to them to introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, my name is Raina Pahade. I'm the Programs Associate at NYFA. Today I'll be sending some helpful links throughout the info session.
Amazing. We'll get started. Before we jump in, I wanted to mention some other information sessions that we'll be holding. We have today's information session, which will be for the craft sculpture discipline. We also have a general information session that is up on NYFA's website now. It was pre-recorded, it has captioning, and it goes over an overview of the grant program. And then we also have webinars that are happening throughout this week and next week for the other four disciplines that we're offering this year. Alongside craft sculpture, we have digital electronic arts, nonfiction literature, poetry, and printmaking, drawing, book arts. If you're interested in attending those information sessions, the RSVP links are on our website. You can sign up there. They will also be recorded alongside this information session and posted to NYFA's website within a week after the live session. I also wanted to mention that we currently have a panelist nomination form that is open. Panelists are integral to the NYSCA Artist Fellowship grant making process. Panelists can be New York-based artists, cultural workers, educators, and community leaders who will be tasked with reviewing the NYSCA Artist Fellowship applications through multiple scoring rounds, and they'll culminate in a virtual panel discussion. It's important to note that the panelist nomination is not open to artists who are applying for the 2026 NYSCA Artist Fellowship. So if you are planning to apply, you're not also able to be on the panel. But if you aren't applying, we recommend applying to be a panelist. You can also nominate somebody else who you might think is a good fit. And you can nominate them through the panel nomination form. We'll put the link in the chat. It's open now, and the panel nomination closes on January 6, 2026 at 5 p.m. Eastern. However, we do encourage early submissions if you are interested. Okay, an agenda for today. We'll start with a grant overview, and then we'll go over applicant eligibility for this program. We'll then talk through the evaluation process, how to apply, application questions and tips, and then we'll end in a Q&A. You can ask questions for the Q&A throughout the presentation. We just ask that you wait until I go over the specific question just to make sure that I might go over it during the presentation. But you can ask questions through the Q&A box that is either at the bottom or the top of your screen. It should just be a box that says Q&A. Also, some key dates we have up on the screen. The application for the NYSCA Artist Fellowship is currently open, and it closes on Tuesday, January 27th, 2026 at 5 p.m. Eastern. 5 p.m. is when the application form closes on Submittable, so we recommend giving yourself ample time applying before that time, and all applicants will be notified in summer 2026. All right, an overview of the grant. The NYSCA Artist Fellowship is an $8,000 unrestricted cash grant available to artists living in New York State. and or one of the tribal nations located therein. This grant is awarded in 15 different disciplines over a 3-year period. We offer 5 categories per year, and the application is free to complete. The NYSCA Artist Fellowship is not a project grant, but is intended to fund an artist's vision or voice at all levels of their artistic development. Okay, applicant eligibility. Before going into the application, it's important to make sure that you are eligible. For this program, you must be 25 years or older by the application deadline date, which is January 27th, 2026. So by that date, you must be 25 years or older. You must be a current resident of New York State and or one of the tribal nations located within New York State. You must have maintained New York State residency and or residency in one of the tribal nations for at least the last 2 consecutive years, which would be 2024 and 2025, and that's for the full 2 years. So for example, if you moved to New York State in the middle of 2024, you wouldn't be eligible this year to apply. You must not be enrolled in a degree-seeking program of any kind, and you must be the originators of the work that you're submitting with. So, for example, you must be a choreographer or playwright, not the interpretive artists such as dancers or actors, and this will depend on the category that you are applying within. Some more eligibility. You can apply if you have not received a NYFA Artist Fellowship in any discipline in the past 5 years. You cannot submit any work samples that have been previously awarded a NYFA Artist Fellowship. So if you have been awarded a fellowship outside of the past 5 years, you can apply, but you cannot submit any work samples that you were awarded a fellowship with previously. Also, while collaborating artists are eligible to apply, the total number of artists cannot exceed 3 individuals, which also includes the submitter. Each artist who is applying within the collaboration must meet all of the eligibility criteria for this award, and artists applying as a collaboration cannot apply separately as an individual in the same year. So if you are applying as a collaboration, you can apply with 2 artists, including the submitter, or 3 artists, including the submitter. Also, applicants can apply in a maximum of 2 categories each cycle. So you can apply for multiple, you can apply for up to 2 if you're interested per year. You can apply if you are not a current NYFA employee or have been in the last 12 months, or a member of NYFA Board of Trustees or the Artist Advisory Committee, or a 2026 panelist, or an immediate family member of any of the above. Also, artists who have been awarded 5 NYFA Artist Fellowship receive emeritus status and are no longer eligible for the award. Next, we have the evaluation process. So this is the review process that the applications will go through. Applications are reviewed over the course of 3 elimination rounds. For rounds 1 and 2, the panel will carefully review and score the assigned applications independently. And from there, the highest scoring applications will move forward into the next round of review. For round 3, the panel will meet as a group and collectively discuss all of the final applications that have made it to that round, and it will ultimately conclude by selecting the fellows and finalists. Also want to mention each year 3 finalists are selected in each category, And starting in 2024, finalists were recognized with a $1,000 cash grant alongside the fellows. So all applications will be reviewed based off of three evaluation criteria. The first of the three is artistic merit. A competitive application demonstrates excellence in their discipline through strong work samples that highlight the applicant's creativity, technical proficiency, and cohesive artistic vision. The second evaluation criteria is clarity and cohesiveness. A competitive application presents clear, concise, and compelling support statements that provide valuable insights into their practice and motivations. The support statements should work together with the submitted work samples to provide a comprehensive understanding of the applicant's vision and goals. And then lastly, we have originality and innovation. A competitive application showcases innovative methods, ideas, and/or concepts that make their work stand out within the discipline. Panelists will assess the uniqueness and originality of an applicant's approach, including the quality of execution, innovation in materials or techniques, and the overall impact of your work. Applicants may also demonstrate innovation through place-based work that is informed by or responsive to a specific location, community, or environment. Again, all applications are reviewed based off of these three evaluation criteria. They are listed on NYFA's website, so I do recommend reading them over while you are submitting your application. And next, going into how to actually apply for this grant. So we receive all applications through Submittable for this program. If you don't have a Submittable account already, you can create a free one on submittable.com. And once you do, you can begin your application. For this grant program, we have 5 different applications for each category. So make sure you're choosing the application that corresponds with the category that you'd like to apply for. Again, if you are applying for 2 categories, make sure you're applying separately through each of the 2 forms. Once you click on the application, you will be taken to an eligibility form that just lists questions to make sure that you're eligible for the grant. You'll have to submit them or answer them all correctly in order to gain access to the full application. Once you do that, you'll be taken to the application with all of the questions. You can start your application and save it as a draft if you'd like to go back before you ultimately submit it. Once you're all finished, you can click submit at the bottom. We don't allow edits for this program, so please make sure your application is in its final form once you do click submit. And then once you submit your application, you'll receive a confirmation email through the email that your submittable account is with, just letting you know that we have received your application. Sometimes this email goes to spam, so make sure you look there, but make sure you have received that confirmation email just to make sure that everything did indeed go through. And if it didn't, you can always reach out to us through email and we can check on that for you. Again, all applications will be received through Submittable. We're not able to allow hard copies or emails of applications. And then once again, our deadline is Tuesday, January 27th at 5 p.m. Eastern. We are not able to grant extensions for this program, so that is a hard deadline. And again, the form closes at 5 p.m., so make sure you're submitting well before that to make sure that you can indeed apply. Okay, we'll next get into the actual application contents for this discipline. So the discipline we have for the craft sculpture category is this category accepts work in all forms of craft, including ceramics, glass, wood, metal, fiber, textiles, jewelry, and mixed media. This category accepts work in all forms of sculpture, including kinetic works and installations. Work for hire or mass-produced works are not eligible for this category. For the application form as a whole, it will include the eligibility form. It will then include the lead applicant information and collaboration information if you're applying as a collaboration. This just includes your name, contact information, the name of your collaborating artists if you're in a collaboration, and then a couple of questions relevant to this award and category. You'll then be taken to work samples, support statements, and then the application will end in demographic information. The demographic information will not be shared with the panel and will only be used for internal use and reporting purposes. So once you complete the lead applicant and collaboration information, you'll be taken to work samples. Work samples are the most important part of this application since it will be the primary point of review. Again, the fellowships is not a project grant, and so therefore you should be completing or submitting work that is completed or a completed piece of an ongoing continuing body of work. Also, work samples should be produced in the past 5 years, and we highly recommend that. If you are submitting older work samples, we recommend providing more context and insight in the work sample information. But we do encourage submitting work samples that are more recent or within the past 5 years. So for this category, craft and sculpture, applicants can submit up to 10 images total. Submitting no less than 5 is recommended. You don't have to submit 10. You can submit less than that, but again, no less than 5 is recommended. Images can be representative of a singular body of work or multiple bodies of work. We accept JPEGs or PDFs. You can upload a maximum of 10 uploads if you are submitting images via JPEGs. Each upload should represent one single work sample. You can also submit a PDF file. That would be one upload with a maximum of 10 pages. And again, each page should represent one single work sample. And please do not include links within your PDFs. Providing multiple images of one work sample on a single JPEG or page of your PDF is acceptable in the craft sculpture category. More information on work samples. Images of diptychs, installations, and multi-part works are accepted. It is strongly recommended that applicants not submit a single file of multiple works in an effort to increase the amount of work samples submitted. So for example, on one of your pages, including 4 image files of 4 separate pieces together in a grid format. We do not recommend that. If it's of one work but of different angles, maybe that's okay. Or again, part of a multi-part work. But please do not put multiple works in one page or one image upload. You can upload files of up to 400 megabytes each with a total submission limit of 800 megabytes. And then just a tip for formatting your images. RGB is the recommended color profile for screen viewing, and you can use image editing software to edit, resize, and reformat your images. Also, once you do submit your work samples, either for each of your images or for your PDF, a metadata section will appear. And that is where you can include the title, the date of completion, materials, and dimensions for each of your works. Right after you submit your work sample, there will be a question for further work sample information. This is required, and you have up to 250 words. You don't have to use the full word limit. For the work sample information, in addition to your submitted images, briefly describe the context, concept, and execution of your work samples. If your submitted work samples include multiple works, you can talk about them collectively or itemize each one and talk about them individually. That is up to you as the artist. If relevant, you may also include how your work samples or a portion of your work samples represent a larger body of work. So if you're only submitting a couple of work samples from a larger body, that's where you can describe their place within the larger body of work. Also, you can describe whether the images document an installation, experience, performance, or time-based piece. You can also describe here the intended circumstances in which the viewer audience should experience the work, such as instructions for navigating the work if it's interactive. So this is where you can kind of guide the panelists on how you would like them to view your work and also the context of the work samples that you're submitting. Next, we have support statements. These, including also the work sample information, must be submitted directly into the submittable application form. So we do recommend that you start writing your support statements in a Google Doc or a Word doc and then paste them into submittable, since you won't be able to go back and edit them through the application form. For the artist statement, this is again 250 words maximum, and it is required. This is a concise statement giving an overview of your artistic practice. This statement should give a brief introduction to ideas, themes, and methods in your practice. It should answer the questions how you make what you make and why you make what you make. This statement should also specifically reflect the ideas and inspiration relevant to your submitted work samples. So again, clarity and cohesiveness is one of the evaluation criteria. So the artist statement should connect back to your work samples. And then also you can use this statement to highlight your role in creating and executing the work, as well as describing the key technical aspects of the work. Also, please note that this is not an artist bio, it's an artist statement. And a couple years back, NYFA staff wrote an artist statement do's and don'ts article that might be helpful to you when writing your artist statement. So we'll put the link to that in the chat. And then lastly, we have a cultural statement. This is optional, so you can include it if you feel like it's relevant to your work and you as an artist. This is also 250 words maximum, and the cultural statement is a supplemental statement that describes how your work is related to and or rooted in a specific cultural practice, tradition, or community. The statement can also offer an opportunity to describe how your artistic work relates to or stems from your culturally specific lived experiences. And that's the last question on the application. After that, you'll be taken to the demographic information. And lastly, I just wanted to share some application tips. Again, it's important to review the application guidelines closely. It's all up on NYFA's website. I covered a lot of it today, so if you're tuning in, you should know most of the guidelines already. And it's also important to carefully review and answer the eligibility questions on the application. You'll need to answer them correctly to be granted access to the application. Also, please ensure that the contact information that you are providing is correct. Make sure that it's an active email that you're checking regularly because that is how we will get in touch with you with the notification for this grant. Also, please allow enough time to upload your work samples, especially if they're larger files. And then do not wait for the final hours ahead of the deadline to complete and submit your application. Technical difficulties often happen, and we do want to make sure that you're able to apply if you're interested in this program. So please make sure that you're giving yourself at least 24 hours before to submit. And then also you can start your application today. Again, the application is currently open and you can save it as a draft to complete at a later date if you want to go back and forth before ultimately submitting. And that is the presentation portion of this information session. We'll transition in a little bit to the Q&A. So if you have any lingering questions, feel free to start dropping them in the Q&A box. Again, the applications close Tuesday, January 27th, 2026 at 5 p.m. Eastern. If you have questions, we also have a pretty extensive FAQ document on our website. We'll put the webpage in the chat. You can also reach out to us at fellowships@nyfa.org through email, and we will get back to you if you have a more specific question or if we're not able to get to your question today. You can reach out to us through that email. And thank you all so much for tuning in. I'll give just a minute to let the questions come in and then we'll start answering them. Okay, we already have some questions coming in, so I'll start to answer them. Our first question is to clarify for an installation, a page with multiple views of the work can be submitted as a single work sample. Yes, that's correct. If it's part of one work, you can submit multiple views as part of one image or one PDF page if you'd like, just not multiple works on one page. Our next question is, does the panel seem to prefer JPEGs or PDFs? There's no preference. One's not better than the other. We are offering the PDF to provide more flexibility for artists who prefer to document multiple angles or maybe multi-part works in one work sample, so you don't have to take up multiple JPEGs for one work sample. So that might be a consideration, but other than that, there's no preference. We have our next question. Does the panel seem to prefer detail second view images of the same work sample as a separate image, full size, or a smaller size in the same page JPEG file? There's no preference as long as you're submitting at least 5 separate work samples and no more than 10 maximum. So that is up to you, the artist's discretion. Um, yeah, either way. Our next question, how many panelists comprise the panel? What fields do they come from? So for this program, panelists are New York-based artists, cultural workers, educators, and community leaders. And they all have an expertise within the discipline they are reviewing. They are oftentimes practicing artists as well as arts and cultural workers. And there are around 4 to 5 panelists per panel. Can you expand on what you mean by mass-produce works? Does this mean manufacturing? Is it okay if you hand make multiples? So for our definition, for craft and sculpture, manufactured for commercial purposes, um, or manufactured is meaning for commercial purposes, and hand making multiples within a series is permitted. If I submit samples as a PDF, do you recommend a margin or can the image go to the edge of the page? There's no preference for the way you format the image on the PDF. If we win the grant, will we be able to keep the art we make? Yes, the fellowship is an unrestricted $8,000 grant that supports your practice. So there will be no reporting for this grant or ownership of the work involved in the award. All of the work is for you. Next, do you have any ability to view a 3-second video of the work? Video files are not accepted for this category, so no, we're not able to view links. And again, please do not include links in your PDF. We have the question, can one use both JPEGs and PDFs? No, you must select one option. So once you get to the application, we'll ask if you want to submit JPEGs. If you go with that option, then an upload button will come up and you can upload up to 10 JPEGs, or you'll have to select PDF, and that is an upload of just one PDF. We have a question. My files are only 2 MB each. Are small files a disadvantage? No, small files are not a disadvantage. Submittable will automatically adjust your files as long as they're not too big. And once you do submit, you'll be able to see how the panel will view your images. So make sure once you do submit, you're looking at that to make sure that you're happy with the way that they look before you submit. Another question, would work based in paper making be better suited under craft book arts, um, craft drawing book arts, or folk traditional art? AKA, can you explain how you might differentiate the disciplines? Yes, paper making is better suited for printmaking, drawing, and book arts. We actually have a full list of our discipline definitions up on NYFA's webpage. I'll put the link into the chat. And we recently updated them to make sure that they're responsive to the field. So we do recommend that you read through them all to make sure that your work is most applicable to the category that you're applying with. And we do have, again, printmaking, drawing, book arts as a available category this year. Folk traditional arts will be available in a future year. Do you have a visual database of past recipients with links to their websites? Yes. On our website, you can go to grant history on the fellowship page and view past recipients. And if they have a website, it is hyperlinked there. So we'll also put that link into the chat. Our next question, do you need to have an art degree or can you be self-taught? No, you do not need to have an art degree to apply. You can definitely be a self-taught artist. And this program is open to all artists as long as you're 25 years or older and fit all of the eligibility requirements. Our next question, if a panelist recognizes the artist based on the submitted images, must the panelist recuse themselves from reviewing the artist? So recognition of an artist is not a reason to recuse alone, but if a panelist has a close relationship to an applicant, either they're family members, they have financial ties, they're close colleagues, they have any kind of history with an applicant for any reason, they will be asked to recuse themselves. Also, if a panelist feels that they cannot objectively review the application for any kind of bias, then they are also asked to recuse themselves. Our next question, are there image size requirements aside from the file size? No, there are not any image size requirements for the work samples. If we are awarded a grant, does NYFA do any press promotion programming for the winners? If you are awarded a grant, NYFA publishes a press release with the fellowship on our website, as well as across all of our social media and with our press contacts. That's once the award goes out. We also provide press templates and social media graphics for the fellows to share out with their own networks. And then also we do try to stay in the loop with fellows and we do our best to share artist news across our social media if it's submitted to us and if it's also of interest to the artist. Our next question, could sculptural wall works, for example, a flag made of tea bags framed, be considered sculpture? Yes, sculptural wall works would be considered eligible for the craft sculpture category. We have a next question. You said that you can't have more than one piece in each image, but can you submit a gallery shot with more than one piece in the room? Yes, that is okay. However, we would recommend submitting work samples with a very clear image of what the work that you're applying with is. So if there's other works in the background of a gallery shop and it's very clear the work that you're submitting with, that's okay. But if it's unclear what the panelists should be focusing on, that might take away from the experience of reviewing your work. The next question, will the panelists be made public? Yes, when the fellows and finalists are announced, the panelists for the program will also be announced. The next question, how many artists are awarded fellowships? So this number fluctuates per year based on funding, but it is around 90 fellows per cycle. Another question, how is the demographics section weighted in the application? Again, the demographics are not shared with the panel, so they're not part of the consideration during the review process. They're only for internal purposes, and it helps us with reporting and to make sure that we are serving all of the communities that we intend to. Another question, are sculptural works made through a paper making process acceptable for sculpture, craft sculpture? Yes. Our next question, do you recommend images in landscape format instead of portrait format? There's no preference, whichever format best represents the work that you're submitting. We have a question. Let's see. We're starting to slow down on questions. We'll give it another minute. I see a question, craft or sculpture or craft and sculpture. This category is craft and sculpture. But just to clarify, you don't need to do both. If you make work that is within the discipline definition, in any way, uh, you'll be eligible to apply. Another question, how recent must the work be completed or created? We recommend submitting work within the past 5 years. And again, if you are submitting work outside of the 5 years, then we ask that you provide further context in the work sample information. But works within the past 5 years is recommended. How does NYFA confirm residency? I moved to New York in early 2024, so I'm curious what needs to be presented. So if you do receive a fellowship, we will follow up asking for documents to make sure you're eligible. And these documents just need to have your name, your address, a New York State address, and the date. And it's required for January 2024, 2025, and 2026. So this can be bills, anything with your name, address, and that's for January 2024, 2025, and 2026. Are applicants asked to share information as to how the funding would be used to support your practice? If so, is using the funding for studio rent enough, or does the foundation prefer a greater distribution of fund usage? So no, it's not part of the application for the artist to share how they would use the funds. Again, this is an unrestricted $8,000 grant. So if granted, you'll receive the funds and there will be no further reporting. So you can use it in any way that supports you or your practice. This can include studio rent, but you can use the funds in any way you would like. Another question, do applications that include cultural statements have a higher percentage for grant support? No, we recommend including a cultural statement if it's relevant to your work and your practice and adds context to how the panelists view your work samples. So it's an option, but it is not required and it won't be weighted better or worse if you include it. Another question, is there a craft sculpture cycle every year? No, the disciplines rotate every 3 years. So there are 5 disciplines offered this year, and then there will be another 5 next year, another 5 next year, and then these disciplines will be offered again after that. Another question we got, is it better to focus on fewer works in depth rather presenting a broader scope of your practice? We recommend submitting your strongest work samples, whether that's less or more does not affect the viewing as long as it's within the requirements of the 10 maximum. Also, again, remember the clarity and cohesiveness. So again, the work sample should connect to your support statements. Um, so I would say that that is a consideration when deciding which work samples you should be submitting. Another question, will you look at an applicant's website or just the work submitted? There is a question in the application where you can provide your website. It is optional, so you don't have to include it. If you do, panelists will likely look at your website. However, work samples definitely are the most important part of the application over your website. Another question we have, I'm an interdisciplinary artist working across painting, video film, sculpture, and installation. Am I eligible to apply as a multidisciplinary artist? Yes, you are eligible to apply as long as your work samples that you submit reflect the discipline that you're submitting within. You can definitely be a multidisciplinary artist or be practicing in more than one disciplines. And then on top of that, again, you can apply for up to two separate disciplines per year. Okay, we're winding down, so we'll probably answer a couple more questions before wrapping up. We have another question about the demographic questions. If I don't feel comfortable answering some of them, could that affect my application? Again, no, the demographic questions will not affect the review of your application. They will not be viewable to the panel. And then also there is an option to select that you would not like to uh, share for each of the questions, so you don't need to provide the demographic information if you're not comfortable. Our next question, are you able to get funded twice if you get grants in two disciplines? No, you can only be awarded in one discipline in the same year. You can apply for two disciplines, but you can ultimately only be awarded in one. All right, our questions are starting to dwindle, so I think we will finish there. I again have our email on our screen if we didn't get to anything or if something's lingering. Um, Feel free to email us with your questions. We will get back to you. Our email is fellowships@nyfa.org. Again, all of the information that I shared should be on NYFA's website, the evaluation criteria, all of the information session links, the application. So definitely go there if you're wanting to access any information. But thank you all so much for tuning in. We really appreciate your interest and we hope that you apply. Thanks, everyone.